Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Masai Mara, and with a very, very, very special animal. We've just managed to find a pangolin, which is curled up in a very tight ball at the moment, and the reason why is because lions were actually playing with it. We didn't realize what the lions had, and we drove up and they had found this pangolin, and they were trying to chew into the pangolin, but it was too kind of curled up, and its armor plating was too tough for it, and so the lions have moved off, and we've sat with the pangolin now in the hope that it's going to start unraveling and we'll start to get it to move. Now, pangolins are an incredible animal. They're not something that we get to see very often at all. In fact, they're an animal that is incredibly rare and is the most trafficked animal in the world these days, and so they are vitally important that we actually, when we get to see one, which is, like I say, extremely rare. This is only the second time that we've managed to get a pangolin on this particular product that we produce in almost 10 years. So that gives you an idea of how rare these guys are. They are not common at all. And so the thing is that they are used for their scales. Now, let's see if it's going to move. I thought I saw it just twitch slightly. What you'll find with these guys is they roll up into this defensive ball, and they've got this long tail. So the tail is what's closest to us at the moment. It's very difficult to make out what's actually going on, but the tail is closest to us, and it rolls round and protects their head, and their head tucks in, and those hard scales will protect the soft underbelly where the legs and the face is, so that they don't get hurt when things like lions come across them, because they're not fast animals, and this does happen. Laurie, can it breathe like that? Yes. So if you have a look, it's a bit tricky to see, but in the middle of that, you'll see that there's a sort of contour, which is the tail coming round, and then there's almost like a little gap that goes down. Now that is where the actual kind of face will be, and so there's air getting in there and they can breathe. I've luckily seen quite a few pangolins in my time, and every time they roll up like this, they can stay like this for quite a long time, particularly if lions have been around, and they will just curl up and they wait and they wait and they wait, and only when they're really sure that the lions are gone, they might even be curled up because I'm talking at the moment, and only when they're really sure that the lions have disappeared will they then unravel themselves and they'll start to move. And it is an amazing thing that I can't actually believe that we've managed to find a pangolin. When we saw the lions kind of messing around, I thought maybe they'd gotten a tortoise, but tortoises aren't out at night, and so I thought maybe, just maybe, there's a pangolin, and we have got one, which is insane. So very, very cool. Now, I forgot to introduce myself as well. My name is Tristan, and on camera I've got Manu this evening, and we are coming to you live, which means we want to hear from all of you. So remember to be able to send through your questions and comments in the comment section below, and we'll basically answer as many as we can. Giraffe Girl, what is the main diet of a pangolin? Well, pangolins will spend their time feeding mostly off things like termites, ants, where they will basically go along. They've got these four limbs that almost look a little bit like T-Rex when they walk. So they're on their back legs, two front legs, and they have long claws. And the claws, they'll then scrape at the mounds, and they open it up. And then they have this tongue that is pretty much the length of their body. So it almost attaches close to their back legs, their hips, and it kind of comes out, and it will go down, and it's very sticky, and it will pull out those little insects and bring them back into the mouth, and they'll then feed off that. And so that's probably why this one is out today. After the bit of rain that we've had, that's going to mean that it's going to show, the soil's going to be softer, much easier to dig. I just want to move slightly so you can see if maybe we can just get a view of any lions that might be around. The lions look like they kind of moved off, unfortunately, into the distance. They got fed up of trying to kind of go towards this pangolin and try to sort of eat it. Now, they went off in that distance there. You can see there's a bit of rain that's falling. I'm going to use my spotlight just to give Manu a bit of help, but unfortunately the lions have really disappeared. The last one I saw was walking there just before we went to all of you. We just saw it disappearing over this ridge. So Graham, you're asking where in the Mara am I? Well, I'm in the Mara Triangle, basically straight below Ngama Mara, so on the northern point of the Mara Triangle. So there is our pangolin. I'm going to just move slightly so that Manu can actually get a better view, so we can show you a bit more of the details, because at the moment we're in a bit of a tricky spot with the grass. So we're just going to get Manu, I'm going to go round a little bit so that we can see a bit better. So we're a little bit higher than what the grass is, and then we should be able to see a little bit better. So yeah, Graham, we're right up in the north. There we go. Now, Crystal, are pangolins nocturnal? Not strictly. They are active more at night, so they do like to move around a lot in the evenings because it's a lot easier for them to go and they don't get harassed and spotted as easily. But they are not strictly nocturnal. They can be seen during the day. I have seen this is now my 8th or 9th pangolin that I've seen. 2 of them were during the day. The rest have all been at night. So, funny enough, out of the pangolins that I've seen, 2 have been accosted by leopards, and this one now by lions. And you can see that armor plating. It almost looks like a pine cone that you can see here. And basically, that armor plating is like your fingernail, but incredibly thick. So if you had to go and kind of touch that, it almost feels like armor, and you can knock on it and it would be very, very hard. And that's why the lions actually leave it alone, is because their mouths just can't get a purchase on it. It's because of the hardness, and especially tonight when it's wet, it's going to be slippery, and their teeth are just going to slide on that keratin kind of armor plating. And that's why eventually they're just going to leave it alone. They're going to get frustrated and move on. Bill, so pangolins are solitary. You only see them by themselves unless, of course, they have a pup, which will mean that they have the little baby, and often the baby rides on their back, which is super cute. That little baby pangolin is the cutest little thing in the world, and they'll ride on the back of mom. But yes, solitary, otherwise you won't see them in pairs unless, of course, you're very fortunate and you find mating pangolins, which is, well, then you must go play the lottery that night because you're going to get very lucky. So, Stephanie, it's obviously very difficult for you to be able to get any idea of a sense of scale for these guys. And so, basically, in terms of size, if it was to unravel and to basically stand and it have its tail dead straight and its nose out, it would be probably from the dashboard, so from about there to the end of the dashboard. So, they're about, what's that? Maybe my arm's length. So just over about a meter would be from the tip of the tail. Now I actually do have a photo of one that I can show you when they're unraveled. Now this particular species that we're seeing, I'm just trying to see where I can get a photo for you. This particular species is called a Temminck's ground pangolin. Which is the species that you get here in East Africa down towards South Africa. You get them. Then in the Congo and forest areas of Africa, you will get black-bellied pangolins, tree pangolins, and so a few other different species as well. Kathy, they are ferocious. You have to be very careful. They'll attack you at the moment's... No, I'm joking. They will not attack a person. They are completely harmless to people. So basically, and that's what makes them a bit of why they're so threatened, is because they don't really have any defense. People come across this animal, it's got nothing that it can do other than roll into a ball like this, which works really well for predators that are natural to them. But as people, obviously, we can get through that. And so no, they don't release any sort of gas, they don't release any sort of substance that can burn your skin or anything like that. The only thing they can do is roll in this ball. But I will tell you something, is if you pick them up and they're agitated, what they do is they almost vibrate their body. And those scales move, and they actually can lacerate your hands quite quickly. You can see how chipped and broken those scales are, and that's all kind of going to cut you up if you try and pick them up. So normally what happens is people grab them with into bags, and then they take them out of the reserves illegally, and then from there, normally they are boiled. Whole like this, and then the scales are pulled off and used. So it's a bit of a problem, and like I said, they are the most trafficked animal in the world currently, which is pretty scary. So it's a horrible thing to think that we've got animals out here that are being poached at the rate that they are, and tons and tons and tons of pangolin scales are leaving Indonesia and Africa every year. Xavier, you're asking if they're related to armadillos. Well, no, not really. They're not the same species. Armadillo has a kind of softish body in comparison to these guys. So they're in their own little grouping altogether. Now I'm trying to find... Okay, there we go. So I found a photo of it that I can show you guys. I just want to quickly adjust the brightness so that we can actually see, because my phone has decided, because it's dark, that it must have a very low brightness. So we'll just try to get that up. There we go. Okay. So basically this is what these guys look like when they are unraveled. So they're very, very scaly. You can see a long tail. Now that tail needs to be long, one, to balance them, because they walk on their back legs only. You see their front legs are carried forward almost like a T-Rex, and then this back tail will actually wrap around like we're seeing now to protect this animal. Then if you have a look, I'll try to zoom in onto this one. Sorry, this is not a high-res picture, but we can zoom in a little bit. You can see there on its front feet, very, very big, long claws, tiny little ear, smallish kind of eye, and then a long snout, and that tongue will come out of that snout there, and they'll then pick it up and go back in, which is absolutely amazing. To see one of these is the most special thing in the whole world, and so we are being so spoiled. I know it doesn't look like much, and I know it's just a ball in the grass to some people, but the thing is as a guide, now spending 10 years out in the wildernesses of various parts of Africa, to only have seen 8 or 9 of them in that time gives you an idea of how rare they are. And I spend pretty much all day, every day out in the bush. Even when I'm on leave and not working, I'm in some sort of game reserve somewhere. So it gives you an idea how rare they are. There are certain places where you can go and you'll find them and you'll have a bit more of a success rate. But they are an incredibly special animal, and very few people get the opportunity to see one of these things. It's one of those animals that you kind of wish that you could see and that you get lucky enough to see. Now, there's apparently, where in a reserve that I've worked before, they reckon that with pangolins, that this is how they do. They'll curl up like this if they've been attacked by a predator, and they sit like this. And if you're talking and those kind of things, they stay like that. As soon as if you want them to move, they always say that you start your car. Now, I'm not sure that that's true, because we started our car just now and it didn't move. It just decided to stay curled up. I think it's got the fright of its life, and I would too if I'd had 13 lions on top of me as well at one point. So there was, I think at one point there was 6 of them. But like I say, we had no idea what they were doing. They just looked like they were grooming each other, and couldn't really see what was actually going on. And so I was kind of thinking to myself, they're grooming quite a lot, and then some of them started to leave and others stayed behind, and I thought, no, there's something wrong here, because lions, typically if one goes, then they all start to get up and start to move around, but yet this one kind of, well, a lot of them stayed behind, and so I thought to myself, well, maybe it's something else that they've managed to find, and so we kind of came a little bit closer, and it was a pangolin, which is crazy. Now, Carla, the lifespan for these guys, tricky. They're so understudied, but reckoned to be about 20 years. So anywhere between sort of 18 and 20 years would be about the right lifespan for these guys. But like I say, because they're so shy and so reclusive, there's so little that's really known about pangolins, and there's only a handful of people that have actually studied this particular species of pangolin with any sort of success. And because it's around at night, it makes it even more tricky to find. The one guy that did study them was a guy that worked in the Sabi Sands Game Reserve in South Africa, and where our Djuma base is, and he used to have to go out at night on foot. Now, this guy was crazy. His name is Jonathan Swart, and he's written some really interesting stuff about pangolins, but he used to go out on foot, and he used to track pangolins that he had tagged, and he would walk around at night with a spotlight by himself. Now, you walk around in the bush here, it is not a very pleasant experience, and you got to walk through elephant, leopard, lion, hyenas, just to follow these guys around, and so it makes it incredibly tough. And the problem with them is that they spend a vast majority of their time hanging around, and so Manu's just having a little scan, trying to see if the lions are anywhere near. The vast majority of their time moving under darker conditions, and so they also move in places where vehicles are going to really struggle to go. And so unfortunately, they're one of those species that it's very tricky to actually be able to study, and so that's why there's very little on it. But I actually can't believe that we have seen a pangolin tonight. Like I say, it's not the most riveting in terms of its movements, but to be able to see this is so special. Now, Connor, what is the rarest species of pangolin? Probably, I read an article about this the other day, and because they're so sort of understudied, apparently I think it's the black-bellied. I might be wrong. It's either black-bellied or white-bellied pangolin, one of the two of them. That is the rarest, if I'm correct. I must go and double-check that, though. But this particular one here is not as sort of high up on the list of rarities. They are quite widespread, and there's probably a lot more of these than we even know. It's just when you drive along, not many people are going to spot that in grass like this. We're just fortunate that lions played with it. Otherwise, the chances of us seeing this thing would have been almost zero. In the grass, when it's curled up like that, it looks just like a rock, and during the day, you would have zero idea that that is a pangolin, unless, of course, you got close enough that you could see the scales. And so they've easily overlooked, and so actual numbers of pangolin are probably not as well known. Now, here in these environments, we've got grasslands where we can probably spot them a bit easier, but you must remember also in the jungle areas, pangolins can be very tricky to find. So, it's an interesting animal in that regard, and I don't think numbers are really as well known as what people say they are. There's certainly a lot that are missing. Right, unfortunately it's still curled up. It's probably still absolutely petrified by the lions, and so we waited and we tried and hoped that it would get up and start moving. If it does start to move, we'll go live again. But from Manu and myself, and a very, very special sighting of a pangolin, it's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys again sometime soon.